Okay. Now, I know you've been studying provocative therapy. Can you tell us a little bit how that blends in with NLP?
Well, Frank Farrelly was the source of that. I mean,
yeah.
And it's worth knowing what that means. I mean, it's about, because provocative has many different meanings. And it's about provoking learning, not provoking to be aggressive. It's about provoking people's learning.
Okay, beautiful.
Rather than sort of directly, for example, giving them suggestions. And a lot of it's about using humor. Frank Farrelly, who was very much the source and the master of this, he was modeled right at the beginning of NLP by Richard Bandler, one of the founders.
Okay. Oh, nice.
So I don't know what Richard Bandler's style was like before, but many say he developed a lot of his style, a very provocative style, based on him modeling, i.e. in NLP terms, studying Frank Farrelly.
Can you give us a little glimpse on that? Is that possible in any way? Like, because you say provoking learning. Is it possible to, share some of how is that happening?
How does it
because
happen?
most people learn by sitting on a chair. I mean, most teachers teach by having the student sitting on a chair, and the teacher is teaching, the student is staying there, and it's kind of like a passive transference of information rather than a provocative one.
Not in NLP, it isn't.
No, of course not in NLP, but even more so with provocative. So
yes,
that's why I was asking.
Because NLP, it's about creating experiences.
Yeah.
To study, so it's not a passive process by any means. Well, it's a way of playing the devil's advocate, to use that expression. So, interestingly, one of my delegates sent me an example just recently. She said, because she was cautious about using the approach, and she said that she was with a client, she was coaching with a client, and this client was considering retiring from her work, changing her career path. And she was putting it on hold because she was very concerned that how her boss and her colleagues would manage without her. And this delegate of mine said, the boss's name was Sally. She said, poor Sally, she'll never manage, without you. So, and it was a very simple comment. Rather than what people tend to do is to reassure people and say, I'm sure it'll be okay, and what you can do is this, or what might your options be. But to actually play the devil's advocate was to say, oh, well, poor Sally, she'll never cope without you. And of course, it kind of highlights the opposite of what that person. So you're doing it with a learning intention in mind, and you're doing it lovingly. That's very important. I think if you don't have those qualities about it, then it could be just a sarcastic comment. So it could be, but it's the way it's done that makes such a difference. But just to go and visit the slums is to see what businesses are happening there. They make their own machinery to make the things, that they sell. And also, the food wallahs, the guys who cycle around taking, it's the most incredibly complex system, and yet it works amazingly. There's guys cycling around, picking up food from their homes and delivering it to them at their offices. And just that's happening all over Mumbai. So
Wonderful.
Things like that, it's just amazing. Because there's no point doing something where there isn't a fit. I mean, the biggest thing is to be in a position where you can choose to do what you believe will work. If you are seeking work, and I understand, that people have different situations, but it's very important to get yourself into a position where you're not having to have the work, where you've got to have it. That's a recipe for disaster. If you're doing this because I've got to get numbers, I've got to get some work, I've got to earn this money, you're not going to be as successful as you are if you think, well, I couldn't take it or leave it. I'll take the things that I know where I can make a difference.